Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ahead of the Chains. I am Mike here with my favorite co-host, Patrick. We have a lot to talk about in this episode. The NFL Combine wrapped up just a little bit ago for us. We're going to talk about some standout performers, also some key storylines. We're also going to talk about one particular veteran quarterback. What is next for him? What teams could be potentially interested? But before we start with any of our possible segments, Patrick, how are you doing on this fine day?
I'm I'm good. I feel pretty good. It's now like the point in draft season where you really have to be grinding tape because new names are starting to come up and new rumors are starting to come out of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to instantly know all the details needed about a player, right? Because suddenly a guy that you thought was going to go day 3 is getting rumors about going in the second round, right? And you have to be ready. So it's a lot of grinding film at this point of the draft season. And we saw a lot of players rise and fall over the combine. It brings me to a point that I really started to think about during this specific combine season. They should give out awards for like best 40 time, best shuttle, all that stuff. They should give out awards for it. They really should. Not because not just for viewership. I think the combine already gets way more viewership than it probably should. But I think it's more about there's certain players that don't end up doing certain drills, don't end up doing any drills. And it's really annoying.
Yep.
Like I wanna see the best athlete run the 40. Because
Mm-hmm.
what if he isn't as athletic as we thought he was? Right?
Yep.
And I know the injury risk, but
Boo.
if
Yeah.
the award, it's not like you lose the chance of getting the award, whatever. And maybe you add a little bit of extra motivation, throw them like 50,000 if they win it. Just a little bit. Like the NFL has the money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's an idea. Maybe I just want guys like Kevin White and Corey Coleman to be able to retire with a little something extra as opposed to
Yeah.
just being a huge bust and then done with their career. Having something on the shelf would be
Maybe
very
we
nice.
give maybe the award for being the best 40-yard dasher or the best bench presser is you get a get out of Cleveland free card. You get a
Mm.
free, like, if you're drafted by the Browns, like Monopoly, like skip your turn type of thing. Like maybe that's the incentive, and then we'll see guys running the 4.1s. Like that'll be we will see peak human athleticism at the NFL Combine if that's the
We
award.
might have seen peak human
Yeah,
athleticism
we
anyway.
might have.
Sonny Styles.
Yeah,
Holy,
jeez.
the day he had. Now,
Yeah,
we're going to go through a few names.
yeah, we are.
Sonny Styles to start that just had ridiculous days. And how are these performances in the combine going to affect their stock? In terms of Sonny Styles, who ran a 4.46 40, the fastest 40
Jeez.
by any of the linebackers in this, tied with his teammate, David
Yeah,
Bailey, Arvell Reese. Then his vertical, that was the big thing that really got people like, oh yeah, Sonny Styles, that's one of the best athletes we've ever seen. Uh, Vertical of 43 inches, 43 and a half,
that's
which is the most ever
just,
by a linebacker.
that's that's just incomprehensible. I can't imagine that.
Yeah,
You
that
forgot
is
to mention,
insane.
by the way, that he's 6'5", 245 pounds. This is 4.46 40, 11-foot 2-inch broad jump, which is also oh my gosh. This guy put on in my lifetime. This might be the best combine performance I've ever seen. All things
It
considered, position, size, speed, athleticism
strength,
might be the best combine I've ever seen on my television. Um,
yeah.
and we're talking about a guy. I would say he was considered the best linebacker in this class. I
Yeah.
would say he was considered a first half of the first round talent before the combine. Does he escape? I just mentioned it. Does he escape Cleveland at pick 6? Does he get out of Cleveland? I don't think so.
I don't think he gets out of the top 5 after
Wow.
that type of performance. I mean,
And it's
there's a
rare to
chance
see
he does it
linebackers go
too.
that high. Yeah. Oh my
And we're
gosh.
going to
Yeah.
talk more about the Jets later in the show,
Yeah, we are.
but there's a chance he goes number 2 overall. And I think it's warranted, right? I would say, I don't know where you stand, but I would say this is the best linebacker prospect I've evaluated. Uh, it was ironically for me, I felt like Jahad Campbell was number one. So another weak side linebacker. In case it isn't clear, I really like those coverage linebackers in the modern NFL. I've been covering prospects since 2020. I've been evaluating talent since then. And I would say Sonny Styles is the best off-ball linebacker that I've evaluated.
Yeah, well, I think the key for me for linebackers now in the modern age is you got to be able to cover guys. You got tight ends have never been better. We're gonna put them out wide. We're gonna make them cover slot receivers. And if you're running 4.46 at 6'5", 240, I think that checks out. That checks out a little bit. He ran faster than his teammate, who we'll talk about in a second, who is projected to be a first round wide receiver. He ran faster than him. So I mean, this is historic stuff. This reminds me not as like prospect to prospect because they're vastly different players, but this type of just raw athleticism is what I remember like from Isaiah Simmons back in the day. I don't know if you remember Madden.
No,
Of course you remember him. He's still in the league.
Remember Isaiah Simmons.
So of course you remember him, but I don't know. Like, do you remember like the hype and like the buzz
of course.
that his athleticism
he's a
created?
multi-position guy. Whatever. Like
He was the positionless guy. I'm
you
saying
see
just from
Sonny Styles
athleticism.
play. Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference is you see Sonny Styles play, and it all translates directly to the field. You are instantly saying this is a guy that could play in the NFL and be very good.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, even before this combine performance.
Oh yeah.
But this was just like him flexing his muscles. By the way, former safety, that tells you a little bit more about his ability to cover. Speaking of safeties in the Styles family, his brother broke the record in 40 time for a safety. Lorenzo Styles, who is also Ohio State. The Ohio State defense, there's a lot of guys, a lot of guys coming out. I'm excited to, see one of these guys are going to end up teaming up with a former teammate, right? Well, and I'm not saying like from a different year. I'm saying like Sonny Styles might end up being with Lorenzo Styles. Maybe we see Arvell Reese get drafted at 2 by the Jets, and then they're able to get, I don't know, Cornell Tate.
We've talked about 4 Buckeyes. We've talked about 4 Buckeyes. We probably haven't even mentioned the best one, which is Caleb Downs. That is like, how did this team not go 20-0 and beat every team by 40? Ryan Day, you're on the hot seat, my friend, even though you just won the Natty. I'm just kidding. But no, I agree. Like, I don't know if you saw that picture of, it's like Sonny Styles is on one side, his brother's on the other side, and their dad's in the middle. And this is like with them at Ohio State. And he makes them look like 4th graders. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, how do you produce 2 children that are this athletic? And then I saw the picture of their dad, and I was like, oh, okay. The dad looks like he's like 6'8", 290. Like he looks like a tank. I'll have to send it to you. He looks like an absolute tank. And I'm just like, okay, that makes sense. But when I saw that his brother ran, the fastest 40-yard dash of a safety, my thought was instantly the Breaking Bad meme where it's like, they can't keep getting away with this. Like, how do they keep having just these superhuman athletes in this family? But Lorenzo Styles Jr., it's so funny. How often have we seen a guy say, I just set the record for the 40-yard dash in my position and get outshined by his brother? Like, that just is so mind-boggling to me. If you had to kind of gauge where you think Lorenzo Styles goes, do you think that makes him, an early day 2 pick, or do you still think maybe day 3 type of guy?
So I'm going to be entirely honest. Styles, and it's partially just because of how talented that defense is.
Yeah.
I was looking at a lot of guys on Ohio State. Lorenzo Styles, I acknowledge his speed. His speed definitely stuck out. He was not the guy. He wasn't the safety that you're looking at. I mean, there's a better safety right there in Caleb Downs. I mean, they're just so talented on the defensive side, and that includes Arvell Reese, right? Arvell Reese, he's ridiculous. I think if you ask me who's the best player in this class, I know that I was just talking up Sonny Styles and all that stuff. I think it's Arvell. I really do. I really do. And I'm including position value when I say that. I am. I think Arvell Reese is the best player in this class because I expect him to be an edge rusher. He could be a damn good linebacker, too. I think he would be a better linebacker. I think he can be a better linebacker than Sonny Styles. I'll say that, right? Arvell Reese, though, what he adds as an edge rusher, it's damn near flawless film. It really is. He's a little light, but he's the strongest player pound for pound I've ever seen. He's incredible. He is remarkable. And he further proved that with his combine. But now it's so weird, right? How this guy just ran a 4.46 and his 10-yard split, which I think is the most important thing for an edge rusher, was 1.58, which is tied for first. Yet now it feels like people are more negative on Arvell Reese than they were before the combine. Feels like now because they saw how well he tested, he's a project. But when you watch his film, no, he isn't. Yeah, he didn't play edge rusher that much. He bull rushes everyone. It is Jared Verse all over again. He doesn't need another move. And when he does need to work another move, he's done a good job. I think people are kind of crazy. I do. I know the numbers aren't outstanding for Arvell Reese, but look at the film. He is definitely the better edge out of these two. David Bailey also had a great
Yeah.
line, but
Arvell Reese is one of those guys. He just pops off the screen every time you watch the Ohio State defense.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Ohio State defense with probably 3 first-rounders. He just pops off your screen every single time you watch him. You mentioned Jared Verse with the bull rush, which I agree. I think he's more explosive than Jared Verse, which is scary because Jared Verse is a really, really good player who fell in the draft. You know, he was projected kind of the mid to late first. He fell to the Rams in the 20s and has been awesome. Arvell Reese is a guy who we're talking about going, like you said, number 2 to the Jets as early. So I don't understand how anybody could say, oh, this guy's a project, this guy's this, that, whatever. It's kind of, and we talked about this before, it's kind of the Micah Parsons effect where, he played linebacker at Penn State. He played edge rusher. He didn't get 3 years of fully committing to edge rusher and the technique and the reps and this, that, whatever. But then he got to the NFL, he was like instantaneously a guy who's going to get 13, 14 sacks. It's kind of like, and I love my analogies. I'm going to give you another one right here. It's like when you're 12 and you're playing Little League Baseball, you're the team's best shortstop, so you play shortstop. You're their best catcher. You're their best pitcher. So they just move you all over. You never really stick to one position because you're the best at every position they put you at. That was kind of the Arvell Reese thing at Ohio State, where it's like everywhere they put him, he was phenomenal. He didn't get to just zero in on being an edge rusher. But I agree with you. I do think in the NFL that he will stick to just being an edge rusher. Another guy who you want to talk about explosive. Let's talk about Mike Washington Jr. I mean, one of the fastest 40-yard dashes at the combine. This guy was scooting. And, the conversation, and we'll get into this more and we'll detail this more later. The conversation I thought going into the combine was, man, it's really a one-headed monster at running back in this draft class. It's Jeremiah Love and a bunch of guys like, who cares? I think Mike Washington put himself out there as a guy, hey, this is not just a one running back draft class. I'm here too. I'm a beast, and I'm worth taking higher than you originally thought.
Mike Washington, 6'1", 223 pounds, ran a 4.33. I mean, it's the running back position. Athleticism is far and away the most important thing, right? Far and away. There is not, and I'm not discrediting the running backs. Of course, there's skill involved, but
you hate running backs, but go ahead.
There's, of course, skill involved, right? The vision is important, and you want to see the better vision on film and all that stuff. It's definitely important. But I think there is no position where athleticism matters more than the running back position. I really do stand that way. It is such – I think there's a direct correlation between who's a good running back and how good their 40 time is and how well they test as an athlete. I think there's a direct correlation there, unless the running back gets hurt. So Mike Washington having the best 40 time out of all running backs, while again being 6'1", 223 pounds, yeah, man. Let's go. I'm hype about that. That's outstanding.
Well, and I think with running backs too, like we've seen, I think with other positions like receivers is a great example. You look at the fastest 40-yard dash times for receivers ever, and it's a lot of guys who just didn't amount to much in the NFL. But I agree with you where running back is such an athletically demanding position. Who is one of the fastest running backs ever at the 40-yard dash? Chris Johnson. He went for over 2,000 yards in a season. Like running backs' 40-yard dash times, I would argue, matter more than any other position. I would say them and maybe corners are the two most important.
I just think generally how well they test athletically.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have to be a great athlete.
But short area quickness, which is what the 40-yard dash, people confuse quickness for speed. The 40-yard dash tests your quickness. It's get up off the line and just run for 40 yards, obviously, given the name. But quickness for running backs is, I think, more essential than any other position. So the 40 time, we could sit here and say the 40 time doesn't matter and this, that, whatever. And to a certain degree, yes, the 40 is overrated. We all know this. But running backs to me is the position where it is the most indicative of what they are going to become in the NFL because again, it measures their quickness, how they get off the ball, how they're able to accelerate through a hole, get extra yards. So to see that he ran as fast as he did, obviously was really telling. Especially like you said, being as big as he is. I mean, we see a lot of the short, small guys. We see like Devon A-Chain like running stupid, ridiculous 40s, and that's great. To see a guy his size running a 40-yard dash in the 4.3s, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. And then let's switch positions right now to
Mm-hmm.
the tight ends. Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers, both of them, very, very strong combines. I will say, Eli Stowers, I wanted to see the 3-cone from him
Yeah,
because a big question from his film is his ability to change direction. And we didn't get to see him try and change direction. But man, can he run in a straight line. He ran a 4.5 flat. Crazy good athlete, Eli Stowers. What shocked me, though, the biggest surprise of the combine, I would say, is Kenyon Sadiq. Dude, fastest time by a tight end ever? I
yeah,
did not
yeah,
expect that. From a guy,
yeah.
he's a blocking tight end.
I would.
That's what's crazy about this. He is a blocking guy.
I think he has been one of my draft crushes, and now it's he was a first round pick probably before this. Well, maybe he was a first round pick. He's definitely one now. He was one of my draft crushes, but to see not only the way he tested, but how many reports did you see? And this is combine related. This happened at the combine that he had the best interview. There were coaches that said that he was the best interview that they've ever had in their life. I think having a smart tight end, like we said, because tight end represents that gap between being a blocker, which you said he's a great one, and being a receiver. You kind of need to be multifaceted. The fact that he was testing very well athletically and testing very well on the whiteboard, is this guy a top? If okay, I'm just gonna say this and I'm gonna put it out there so it doesn't happen. Sean McVay's on the clock with his second first round pick, and Sadiq's still on the board. He's a ram. Like he's a ram. And
Reunite him with Terrence Ferguson, yeah.
yeah, my God, have mercy on my soul. But I just don't see how this guy escapes the top 20
Well,
picks.
and
I
he's
really
the
don't.
type of guy I think needed a strong combine because at Oregon, he didn't have an expanded role. He didn't. It was a very limited role with Oregon. He didn't really put up much numbers. But the film spoke for itself in terms of his ability to block, which was what he was mainly there to do. And then when he did get the ball, he was outstanding and he was a good route runner too, really well-rounded player. And now we see just how much meat is left on the bone here. Like Sadiq, man, he can be crazy good. And I don't think it's irrational to take him with the type of capital that the Colts used on a Tyler Warren. I really don't. I think he, if you love him, if you love him, he can be like I can understand him being a higher graded tight end.
I think the other thing that's in his
Warren.
favor, and I'm glad you brought up the Colts taking Tyler Warren when they did. There were two tight ends taken in the first round last year. Both of them look like they're going to be really, really good. Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren both got in offenses that fit their skill set. That both play callers. It took a little bit longer for Colston Loveland, but once the Bears found out how to use him, he was Caleb's go-to guy at the end of the year. Obviously, we know about the numbers that Tyler Warren was putting up. I think those two give more confidence to teams taking tight ends in the draft, saying this guy can be a vocal point of our offense, especially if we have a young quarterback like the Bears did. This guy can be his security blanket. This guy could be his go-to. We saw it with Brock Bowers a couple years ago, but Brock Bowers is a unicorn tight end prospect. I'm not going to compare anybody to Brock Bowers. He's the best tight end prospect I've ever seen, granted. But I do think that the success of Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren will actually help Sadiq and his draft stock this year for some teams to have confidence in that position.
Yeah, now you found one specific player very interesting in terms of his performance, right? And he overall has a very interesting storyline. We're going to get that into that as we start up our most interesting combine storyline segment right here.
Yeah, thank you so much for that transition, Patrick. There's a guy at this combine who without exaggeration, put up probably the greatest performance of anybody from his position. And that position just so happens to be the most important position in all of football. I am, of course, talking about Taylon Green, the quarterback from Arkansas. Now, some of you may be asking, Mike, who the hell is Taylon Green? And a week ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to give you a concrete answer. But when you run 4.36 in the 40-yard dash, you jump 43 and a half inches, and you broad jump 11 foot and 2 inches, and oh yeah, you're 6'5" and a quarter, and you're 230 pounds, you start having to pay attention. Like, people start paying attention. This is a guy who, quite honestly, like I said, put up one of the best combine performances of a quarterback ever. He is a freak athlete in every sense. Maybe he's not the thickest guy impossible. He's only 225, but he's 6'5" and a quarter. The way he ran, the way he jumped, everything jumped off the page. And it got me like, okay, I need to drop everything I'm doing. I need to quit my day job. I need to break up with my girlfriend. I need to watch film on this guy immediately, right? My girlfriend was really confused by that, but it doesn't matter. It's about the film grind, as we know. I had to watch this guy play. And I got to say, Patrick, his combine performance clearly will shoot him up the ranks of everything. And teams will look at that and say, man, he's a project. He's a guy worth taking a chance on. The film was underwhelming. The film was underwhelming. The ball did not really shoot out of his hand. Mechanically, he was all jacked up, which that doesn't really bother me because I believe in coaching. But the arm strength, the decision making, the tempo, the playing the position to me wasn't really all there. And if you guys know, my love affair with Anthony Richardson has lasted now for 4 years with very minimal return. I will say the one difference between him and Anthony Richardson, although he tested a little bit better, Anthony Richardson has a cannon, and the ball flies out of his hand. You can say the same thing for other similarly gifted athletes like Justin Fields, right? Ball flies out of his hand. The ball doesn't really fly out of his hand. He's got a weird release. So I was disappointed in the film, but that does not take away from how good he was at the combine and how much his draft stock is up. I still think he's a day 3 pick. However, he's now a very interesting day 3 pick that we're all going to be tuning in when he plays in the preseason.
So I love that you picked him as a storyline because there's a lot to it. You mentioned him playing the most important position on the field. What if he doesn't? That's a very real conversation right now. Will he switch to receiver or tight end? It is a very likely possibility here. And that might raise his stock a lot. People want to bring in athletes. And that's the big thing. You say, oh, he'll be a day 3 guy. Well, and again, there's a lot here. If he switches positions, a team might say, yeah, I want to develop a 6'5" wide receiver. Someone might
Terrell Pryor. Sorry, I have a cough. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a cough.
A coach might want to take a chance on potentially Terrell Pryor, right? A coach might want to bring in a guy of that caliber, a superb athlete. And if they can't develop, okay, but they'll take the risk. And it goes from one team saying they want to take the risk to more teams. And then rumors start up. And all of a sudden, now he's going as a round 2 guy, projected to go round 2. And let's say maybe there's a team that says, I can fix him at quarterback, right? Maybe Miami or Arizona, they miss out on Malik Willis. And now they have to find a way to bring in that young quarterback because Fernando Mendoza is going at 1. Dante Moore isn't in the draft. How are you going to find a way to make this work? Who's going to be that next quarterback? Well, I remember a lot of people talking about Lamar Jackson needing to switch to wide receiver, and he won 2 MVPs. So,
yeah, man, shout out Bill Polian for that one. Shout out Bill Polian, one of the greatest takes of all time.
Maybe a team is going to try and do exactly that and draft him, this raw, very flawed quarterback, to be a quarterback, and they take that chance on round 1. Because everyone's talking about taking him in round 2 to play tight end, but I'm looking to get my quarterback of the future, and I want the 5th-year option, so I'm going to take him in round 1.
I certainly think he'll start as quarterback, and then by camp, if he doesn't break the roster, then maybe
I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the team, and it depends on exactly this, the storyline, right? The Taylon Green storyline that you mentioned here, that is one of my favorite ones to watch throughout the rest of this pre-draft process. Yeah. In my mind, I really like that you said that one. Stole it from me. That would have been my number 1.
Yeah, you told me to update the doc, and I was like, oh, I see he doesn't have his in yet. Let me throw his in, and then I
didn't put any down yet.
Yeah.
I let you make the first choice out of
Thank
respect. We
thank you.
we have
Thank you.
some respect here,
We do. We do.
uh, and I'm going to show a little bit of respect to a position that I never really do because I'm known so well by you and the listeners of the show as the running back hater or whatever, right? But this running back class is way better than we expected. Way better. And we already talked about Mike Washington, who, I mean, he's outstanding. He was remarkable in the combine. He showed a lot. And we talked about how the combine is the most important thing for an athlete. Like that shows off so much, specifically at the running back position. Well, of course, we have Jeremiah Love. We have Price, who's another good running back who is right behind him. And he's huge, man. He's a big guy. And if we're talking about huge athletes, Adam Randall, he came out of nowhere from Clemson, 6'3", 232, running a 4.5 flat. That's crazy. I mean, just a bunch of guys that I thought showed a lot at the running back position. Desmond Claiborne out of Wake Forest, he ran a 4.37. And this is why I always stand where I stand at the running back position because yeah, this is a weak running back class. And then what happens? We see the combine. It's always a weak running back class, and then the combine comes around. That's how it feels, right? The combine comes around, players start performing, and we see, wow, these guys are really good athletes, so they'll probably be good running backs. And here's the answer: they will. But there's only 32 starting jobs, and every year there's another 10 to 15 guys that could take valuable snaps at the running back position in the NFL. That's part of the reason that I don't think many teams should be planning around a running back because there's so many guys, even in a weak draft class like this, that are proving that they deserve legitimate roles.
Yeah, and I hate to support your anti-running back agenda, but when you think about a guy like you said, there's 32 starting jobs, there's 10 to 15 guys that are going to take meaningful reps. How about a Kyle Monung guy? A guy coming out of Rutgers, 7th round, who was a really, really good ball carrier for the Bears last year, like really helped to change the identity of their offense. And I think we're seeing more and more, especially with this year, like you said, with the guys who really popped out during the combine. And I also agree with your point that every year we say the running back draft class is weak, with few exceptions. And then the combine happens, we're like, whoa, we got 8 guys I love. And it's like, okay, so this is clearly obviously an athletic based thing, but you're right, like these guys, there's going to be a lot of guys in this draft that are taking meaningful snaps. Might not be Saquon Barkley putting up 2,000 yards and getting offensive player of the year, but there are going to be guys that are contributing to their offenses in meaningful ways. Another guy that I think is going to be a meaningful contributor, and I feel like we've spent the whole episode talking about Ohio State Buckeyes. I got to talk about another one. Another storyline that I thought was very interesting going into this combine was the storyline about Carnell Tate. Now, did not run particularly well. Didn't run slow. Didn't run slow, right? We got to preface that 4.5 is not slow, but obviously did not have the burners like a lot of other receivers. I mean, he's getting outrun by quarterbacks now, which is insane. And the reason I think that this is such a good storyline is not because he ran 4.5 necessarily, because that's not super shocking. Speed is not the name of his game. He is not going to be a blazer. I think obviously his play speed is fine, but it's not, something ridiculous. What I think, and this is going to be something that we might see in April, is does his non-explosive 40-yard dash time drop him in the draft? I think this is a player. I've loved Cardinal Tate for a long time. I mean, I think he's got undershadowed just because he's been around, this unicorn and Jeremiah Smith and all these other guys. And every year Ohio State has first round receivers, right? I think this guy, he's a silky smooth route runner. He's got great hands. He's able to separate. Those are the qualities that you want from a receiver. And his 40-yard dash time does not scare me at all. So I would hate to see him fall in the draft because of his lackluster speed, so to speak, and then have a team later on in the first round take him and get a huge value. I can't imagine if an Ohio State receiver ever, fell in the draft and then went in the 20s and became really, really good. Like, I can't think of a recent example of that. But the point is that Cardinal Tate is a really, really good player. And I don't want the 40-yard dash time, and, he's not the biggest guy in the world, to affect the fact that he is going to be a huge contributor, I think, in the NFL.
Yeah, but I think there is some truth to he showed one player on tape who wasn't very fast, right? He wasn't. The speed really
I would
wasn't a
say
crazy
his
aspect of the
speed
game.
was acceptable. I wouldn't say that he was
Yeah,
fast. He wasn't
he's.
slow. He's
I'll tell
acceptable.
you who my Carnell Tate uh, comparison is.
I
It's
think I know
Keenan
who you're going
Allen.
to say. Yep.
It's
Yep.
Keenan Allen.
Hmm.
100% is Keenan Allen.
And
He
how
isn't
I'll take
crazy
Keenan
speed, but
Allen
he's
10 days out of
explosive.
10.
100%.
Yeah.
But there's really good receivers in this class. And if he was going to jump ahead of those two on a lot of teams' boards, he was going to have to put up a really nice 40 time. I don't think he's going to have some crazy fall, but I think for some teams, he might have been ahead of Mekhi Lemon, but now he's behind him. Or he might have been ahead of Jordan Tyson, but now he's behind him. I think, again, it's a really, those three wide receivers, and that includes Cornell Tate, are really good. And in order for him to have separated himself and kind of put himself a little bit of a tier above, he would have had to show that he had more game speed than he showed on film. And he wasn't able to do it. I don't think it's going to make him collapse. I don't think his draft stock is going to plummet, but I do think it will be hurt a little bit uh, as to how much. I don't think it'll be a crazy fall,
Yeah,
but
no.
I do think it's a situation to watch without a doubt. Storyline I want to point out, and I mean, I guess it's a pattern across the league, but it really feels that way specifically on the defensive front. Players are getting lighter at the worst time possible. It feels like a lot of these guys are a lot faster, right? We're seeing some linebackers play a lot speedier, but they're not the biggest players on earth, you know? And I say it's the worst time possible because with teams running more too high, I mean, how did Seattle win, right? How did Seattle win the Super Bowl? Well, they gave a lot of their credit to their ability to defend the run out of a light box, out of a too high shell. And you have to be able to hold up against the run in order to do that. David Bailey is my prime example of this. He not only is he a low effort player against the run, but he's just generally a light body. And we're going to talk more about David Bailey later. You'll hear a rant about him for sure. I'm not a fan of David Bailey whatsoever, and we'll talk about that when we talk about that Jets pick later on in the show. But I just think these defensive fronts are getting too light when they're needed way more now than ever to be able to defend the run.
Yeah, and you talk about, I guess, how players are getting lighter. And it's so interesting because we've waxed poetic this entire offseason since we started the show about how, oh, teams are lining up under center more. They're going out with 3 tight ends. That does not bode well with lighter defensive linemen. That does not, right? You need you a Byron Murphy, a big, thick boy in the middle to disrupt stuff. We don't need all these light guys on the edge. And that's actually a good segue into what I was going to talk about for my last Combine storyline. And I have 3 words: speed, speed, and more speed. These guys are faster than ever, and that's a direct correlation between the guys being lighter than ever. You talked specifically about the defensive line being light. Obviously, that is the case. But to my count, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 guys that ran 4.33 or faster. Like, that's ridiculous. We also talked about a quarterback that is 6'5 and ran 4.36. Speed is becoming more of a focal point in our game than it's ever been before. Speed is the number one most what's the word I'm looking for? It's the number one most wanted skill in an athlete. Like, we need guys in the modern NFL that can run and run fast. And again, maybe like we're saying, the pendulum is swinging a bit too far to the left where big teams with big bodies are going to start dominating all these light guys who can run fast. But the key to the combine for me was just how fast these guys are and how much of a focal point that speed has become in the NFL. It's reaching its apex of importance.
Yeah, but again, it's very strange because
Mm-hmm.
the offense sets the tempo and
Yep.
offenses are getting heavier. Offenses are getting bigger. I
Yeah.
think the true answer really does lean in the middle, and that means you got to depend on the Sonny Styles of the world, and you got to be able to find the guys that fall a little bit despite being more hybrid athletes, right? Because in the
Yep.
first round, there's going to be the the Caleb Downs, right? That could be physical and really play tough football while also being incredibly athletic and being able to cover a lot of space. But when it gets later in the draft, are you able to find the Nicky Manwaris and the Brian Branches and those guys that are more of a hybrid role?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it gets really tough. And I mean, who have you looked at so far that's really, not to put you on the spot, that's really stuck out as like a potential faller, but he has a little bit of the build to be more of a hybrid player that you get the best of both worlds in the sense of he's both big and athletic, able to cover a lot of space, cover the speedy slot receivers while also being able to go ahead and defend against the big tight ends.
You're putting me on the spot, and I don't like it. And I have a half answer for you. I'm blanking on his name, but the corner from South Carolina. I'm having a brain fart. I'm like totally blanking on his name, but that's a guy who I have really liked his combination of speed and height so far. And again, we want to talk about big and fast South Carolina DBs. Nick Manwari falls into that category as well. But
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to sit here and say we have to go like the old Pete Carroll method and like measure the guy's arm length and if he's 6'4" and he's got long arms and he's going to be a great corner. I think that maybe that's phasing out a little bit in the game, but I do think that the combination of size and speed is important. Like, obviously if you could build a guy in the lab, you'd want a guy like Nick Manwari, but speed is not just the most important thing. Like we do need size. We do need to be able to compete with these bigger bodies.
Is it Brandon Sissy?
Yes. This.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was totally having a brain fart. He's a guy that I really like. Can you tell I really would love if Seattle took him with pick 32? I think that'd be
You
a
don't
pretty.
know his name.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Well, it's March 1st. Okay, I have a little bit of time.
Yeah, no. Listen, I didn't know who he was.
Yeah, no, I have a
I'm not
little
gonna
bit.
lie on specifically corner. I am really behind right now. If
Yeah.
I'm being entirely honest, the guy out of LSU, I haven't even watched yet.
Yeah, no, it's getting that time, like you said. Now it's time to grind the film.
Yes,
But I'm gonna
100%.
look. I'm looking at his information right now. He's a little bit smaller than I thought, but I mean he is athletic. Jumped well. He's good
Mhm.
athlete, but
But
yeah. Thanks
that's
for
what it
putting
is,
me on
and
the spot.
that's also on the offensive end.
Right.
And I mean that's why seeing the tight end out of Oregon, Sadiq.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why seeing
Yeah.
Sadiq have the type of performance he had is huge because you take a receiver off the field to go into 12 personnel. Well, you still want to have a guy that could stretch the field and be a really nice receiver.
Yeah.
So Sadiq is a great blocker, which means you want to use him in 12 personnel. But then he's also able to go out and be an unbelievable receiver
Yep.
because of that athleticism.
Yep.
So, like, those are the guys that the league is starting to revolve around.
Yep.
So you say, yeah, speed, and you're right. Because these players were raised in the era
Mhm.
of speed being the emphasis.
That's their mindset. That's their mindset.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because they grew up seeing Tyreek Hill and the Legion of Zoom winning Super Bowls.
Mhm.
That's the era of football that we're in right now.
Yep.
The players don't adapt with the times. The coaches do. The
Mhm.
players are a little bit behind the eight ball. Always. The pendulum's always shifting. So the players are always a little bit outdated. A little bit. And that's why when you have a Sonny Styles, you potentially look into taking him as early as you can, right? Because freak athletes like that, that's what you need currently in the league because those are the guys that can really do it all. And those players are timeless. When you're a do-it-all player, you can fit in every system. And systems are going to age out. Systems are going to age in. We're seeing that exact thing happen. These under center, heavy personnel offenses are aging in. The defenses need to combat that by being these unique athletes. And the offenses need to keep bringing in these special types of tight ends, like Sadiq.
Mhm.
So those types of players, like that is what the league is currently looking for. So I was talking about how I'm behind the eight ball on corner, but there's one specific corner that I did watch his tape, and I fell in love, and that's Jermod McCoy. I loved his tape. My third storyline from the combine is the fact that a year after this ACL tear, he is still not able to go for the combine. And maybe he's just playing it safe. He doesn't want to re-injure it, but that's concerning. And again, it sucks because his tape is electric. Like his tape is outstanding. But it's hard to take a bet on a guy who can't even perform in the combine, and we haven't seen him play in a year.
Yeah, this is very reminiscent, and I'm sorry to hit you with another baseball analogy, but it's March, it's spring training. I'm in baseball. I'm starting to get in baseball mode a little bit. It's kind of like when a pitcher's coming off Tommy John surgery, and his fastball velocity is like 4 ticks below what it was pre Tommy John, and you look at that and you're like, maybe he's not right. And when you're not doing drills at the combine, the showcase of your life, which is what the combine is, because of an ACL injury from over a year ago, especially playing a very physically, athletically demanding position such as corner, it's a major red flag. Like it is. And I feel bad for him. I hope that he's okay. I hope that, like he said, his knee is continuing to recover and progress. Injuries, I obviously we all hate injuries, but to see that, that was really concerning for me. Like that's a type of situation where I think taking him in the first 3 rounds is really risky. You're right, the tape is good, but if you can't have a guy who is all there athletically, who doesn't participate in the NFL Combine in March, I don't know. I'm not giving up on him. I'm not saying he can't have a career, but to take him with the first 100 picks, I would say that would be pretty risky, pretty rich for my blood personally.
Yeah, I think on one hand I'm with you, but on the other hand, look at
You like
like
the
Will
tape.
Johnson.
You like the tape, and you
Yeah,
like Will Johnson. I agree.
again, like think back to what Will Johnson.
Yeah,
That he was a stud.
dude, I
He
think he would have
really
gone
is.
top
He's a
10.
stud for Arizona.
I think he would have
Yeah,
gone
he's
top
a
10.
stud for Arizona, but
Yeah,
he's coming off an injury. The issue with this though is Jermon McCoy is a year removed. Like it has been so long, and
yep,
he's not participating in the combine, and it's probably advice from his agent.
probably.
I right that probably is what
But
this is
even if
about.
he's 90%, I still would have ran because not going is worse. Like if he ran like 4.52 and he didn't jump well and this, that, whatever, or if he skipped out on a jump, that's less alarming than him just not doing anything at all. Because if I'm a team, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like you're still
Yeah,
not participating. So yeah, that seems very alarming to me.
again, it's legitimately some of the best tape I've seen out of a college corner.
Where do you think no injury, no ACL tear? Where would you say he
Oh,
goes?
he's I'd say a
Back half.
top three defender in the class.
Wow.
Uh, oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, his film is crazy. It's like Sauce Gardner equivalent, and he's playing for Tennessee. He's
Yeah.
not playing on Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He's playing against some of the best receivers in the league,
True.
and he is locking them up. You look at, I believe it was Ohio State, and he played against Jeremiah Smith. Clamped the entire game.
Yeah.
Like he was ridiculous, and he's doing it against these top receivers in the nation.
Yeah.
So I think Sonny Styles is still ahead of him. I think Arvell Reese would still go ahead. I might take him over Caleb Downs. I really might.
Wow.
Like he was, you want a lockdown corner, you got it
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in McCoy. But is that the case? Like, will he even be available consistently? I don't know. Like it is very concerning everything going on with McCoy at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about taking this guy pre-injury, what he would be. Now I want to switch gears into talking about present day and what we would do if we are the Jets at number 2. What are some of their options? What are some of their, I guess, best team building philosophical pathways to success for this draft?
We talked about how many great defenders there are in this class, and there's no one that is looking desperately for defensive help, quite like the New York Jets right now. They just trade away Jermaine Johnson, so now they have the opening at edge rusher, right? There's 3 really good edge rushers in this class. 2 of them are being heavily rumored to potentially go right there. That would be David Bailey and Arvell Reese. And then Ruben Bain, I think you should throw him into the discussion because I think he's a better player than David Bailey, at least. Then Sonny Styles, of course, that's someone that you think about taking there. Even though he's not an edge rusher, he could help you a lot. Maybe you think about going to Caleb Downs. I don't know. How do you look at this pick? Who do you think is in the circle there? I think those would be the 5 names I list.
Yeah, they have no ability to take a quarterback, which is horrible for a second overall pick, excuse me. Fernando Mendoza is going to be the only quarterback that is even worth a first rounder. Ty Simpson will probably go, but we know he's probably not a first rounder just with QB inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So they automatically zero in on defense. They have a defensive head coach. Only problem is they didn't have a single interception last year, so that's not ideal. And I do agree that when you're taking a guy number 2 overall as a defender, you probably want him to be an edge rusher. That being said, Sonny Styles is about as tempting as it is to take a linebacker number 2. I just don't know when you look at positional value, positional strength, like what the argument would be to take a linebacker over an edge rusher. If you think Arvell Reese and you think Sonny Styles are both A1 grade players, which I would agree with that, then you have to take the edge rusher in my opinion. I'm with you. I'm not as anti David Bailey as you are, and trust me, I want to get my popcorn ready to hear what you're about to say in a few minutes. But I don't think that he is a top five, top 10 ish type of guy. And with Ruben Bain, like I kind of want him to go to the Jets just so I could see the dinosaur fight between him and Will Campbell twice a year with how small their arms are. With that being said, no, I do like Ruben Bain. I think the arm size thing is a little overrated. However, I actually, and this is a small side tangent. I was actually in the camp that like, guys, let's stop making fun of Will Campbell. His arms are small. Who cares? Like this, that, whatever. He doesn't have to play guard. And then I'm watching him like through that the second half of the season in the Super Bowl, and I'm like, man, this guy could use arms that are a few inches longer. I'll tell you what, because the way he sets and the way he attacks is of a guy who has long arms, and he doesn't, and so he gets beat all the time. And it was poor technique paired with lack of. Um,
Also, really good defensive players on the other end. Like throughout the playoff run,
yes,
it
yes.
was great defensive talent.
Yes, there was a lot of. I mean, Derek Hall. Like, I don't know if you saw Derek Hall just stick his arm out and like
Oh yeah,
Will Campbell like
but
couldn't touch
that's the
him.
thing. The good edge rushers know how
Yeah,
to take advantage of that.
yeah,
But the good edge rushers with short arms
yeah.
know how to
Yes,
work around not having it. So I do think like as much as not having long arms affects
I think
Ruben
it's a bigger
Bain,
deal for O lineman is what I'm getting at. It's a bigger
yeah,
deal for the
because you're
tackles
reacting.
because you
You're
are
reacting.
you are
Yeah.
punching and you are reacting. And as a defensive lineman, I could just
Y-
swipe your hands.
Exactly.
And so my hands could be short, but if I can get to your elbows, I could swipe your
Mhm.
hands away. So to me, the
Well,
Ruben Bain like short arms thing doesn't really affect me. This is a very
it
long.
depends on the matchup.
Yeah,
It depends on the matchup, right?
I mean,
If we're gonna talk Ruben Bain, let's
it's not nothing.
I
It's not nothing,
well
but
yeah, it's if you're playing against Trent Williams, right?
yeah,
Trent Williams is more of an aggressive offensive lineman. He's going to get his hands inside. He's going to take advantage of having long arms himself.
yeah,
But when you're playing against a more reactive player, I want to say Rashawn Slater. I'm not going to because Rashawn Slater also has short arms.
yeah,
So I'll say Joe Alt. Joe Alt is a more reactive offensive tackle who's still outstanding.
yeah.
But because of that, Ruben Bain is able to set the tempo of that matchup. So I think the more aggressive offensive linemen are going to be the players that Ruben Bain really struggles with, right? Because they are going to set the tempo of the matchup. They are going to control what happens and what moves Ruben Bain is allowed to work. Meanwhile, in some of these other matchups against, again, the Joe Alts of the world, he'll be the first one to really make a move. And Joe Alt is going to play off of what he's doing. So Ruben Bain can stay how he's comfortable.
If you're gonna have short arms as a defensive lineman, I better see some violent hands. And I think he has violent hands. I
Mhm.
think that his hands are quick, his hands are violent, his motor is relentless. I mean, just watch Miami. He is just flying over the field. I do really like Ruben Bain. I still think he's a top 15 pick. Probably just with the measurables, with the way that the combine went. Probably you say Arvel Reese before, and we talked about early in the episode. His film is ridiculous. I mean, this is
He's the
we could
best.
be looking at a guy who is again
He's the best.
similar in style
Eh,
to Michael Parsons. I don't think that there is an option for the Jets at two other than Arvel Reese, but
yep,
I
completely agree.
will say, I think their best course of action could be drop down about 3-4 picks. Just accumulate, because they have 5 first rounders in the next 2 drafts. They are not going to be competitive in 2026. I would say stockpile the farm. If you love Arvo Reese and you think this is a player that is going to like change your franchise, this is a Miles Garrett, this is a Max Crosby, this is a Micah Parsons level edge rusher, which again, I might actually agree with you. Maybe to not to that same effect, but if you think that this guy we cannot take the field in 2026 without Arvel Reese being a Jet, you take him. If you are just maybe a half tier below that level of love with him, I think you trade down 3 or 4 picks and you get some
You know,
similar. You get some
you
more
know what
assets.
team I'm looking at?
Washington.
I think oh, you're saying Washington.
I
I
think
was thinking
Washington
the
could trade him.
Giants.
Yeah, the Giants could do that.
Losing Bobby Okereke, right? They're
Yep.
probably going to cut him, get another
You
20
think they're
million
trading up for
vested.
Styles?
Yes,
Interesting. Interesting.
I do. Because I don't think you get him at 5. And I think they give up a lot. I do.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
with John Harbaugh, they want to win. I think
essentially,
that's a very possible. I think that's a very possible thing. I didn't think too much about trading down. I'm not going to lie, but I do think you might be able to get a pretty nice.
yeah, and I think they're in a rare position at pick 2 where Fernando's a Raider. We know this. Everybody
Yeah.
everybody who has watched football in the last calendar year knows Fernando's a Raider. You're in a position for the Jets where you basically have your pick of BPA, best player available. You can take whoever you want in the draft except Fernando. And I think that would be a very enticing trade proposal for a lot of teams, right? Do you want to go up and do you want to get a Sonny Styles? Do you want to trade up for an Arvell Reese? Do you love Caleb Downs? Have you watched any other teams but Ohio State? Like those are some of the questions we're
If
asking.
so, why?
If so, why? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Um, but like these are the things that the Jets have to offer. They're like, hey, take your pick of the litter. We'll give you whoever you want. And Arvell Reese is a guy who I think would generate them a boatload of picks. And again, if they're doing what I think they're doing and what they should do is breaking down this organization to the studs, which should start with the owner, but we're not going to get into that conversation right now. Breaking this thing down from the studs and just like biblical levels of greed when it comes to draft picks. Just accumulate as many
Worked
draft
for
picks as
OKC in basketball.
dude, yeah, and they're the best. And I don't watch basketball, admittedly, but they're like they just won the championship, and they have
Yeah.
still like a boatload of picks. Like there's some
Yup.
12-year-old playing AAU right now that's going to be in the Thunder in like 10 years because they have 40 first round picks in the next 5. Like it's ridiculous. So, I just think if you're the Jets, just punt on 2026, or like I said, accumulate more later in this draft. Give yourselves more dart throws and get more draft picks. I don't think this team could have enough draft capital, so I would trade down. But my also good
Yeah.
plan would be to take Arvell Reese.
Yeah, and I agree. In
Yeah.
terms of, we talked about Arvell Reese a little bit earlier in the episode, but I just think you look at Arvell and just the tape. I mean, I know he doesn't have that many reps at edge rusher, but when he's out there, he manhandles people, and he's at Ohio State. He's playing against good offensive tackles, right? It isn't like David Bailey. And that this is the thing. This is what pisses me off. David Bailey versus Arvell Reese should not be a discussion. It's like when Travon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson was a conversation. You remember that? And a team genuinely took
Yeah,
Travon Walker
shout out
over
Trent
him.
Baalke, man. Shout out Trent Baalke, one of the
Yeah,
all-time
what are we
GMs.
doing? And
Yeah.
like Walker's fine, but he's not Aiden Hutchinson. But we get so caught up in, I mean, I would say upside, but Arvell Reese is the better athlete too. He has the better upside too. So would you rather, would, and this is honestly how I look at it. This is not exaggeration in any sense. Would you rather have the player who's a better athlete, is better against the run and better against the pass, played for Ohio State, like played with a very legitimate, prominent team? The only advantage for David Bailey is that he has better numbers. Arvell Reese's numbers are very good, though. They are very good. Would you rather have that guy or the guy who not only doesn't hold up against the run and is too light, but legitimately doesn't try against the run? It is like how people used to talk about Mark Gastineau in the 1980s level. Like he sees the running back at the football, he legitimately stops trying. He does not care. I've seen people legitimately say he's not even the best edge rusher on his team. And we are talking about the possibility of the Jets going with David Bailey over Arvell Reese at number 1. This is insanity. It's insanity. I don't get it. Again, David Bailey, his numbers were pretty good. He was an efficient pass rusher. But watch the film. Please just watch the film, and you'll see an edge rusher that is not very big, not very strong, but he's winning with speed to power against far inferior competition that is just tripping over itself. It's not him being this great player. It's just other players not looking great and him taking advantage when players don't look great. Arvell Reese, on the other hand, is a victim of not being a full-time edge rusher. But even though he's not a full-time edge rusher, I think his film is legitimately more refined than David Bailey's. I really do. It is. I don't get the rationale. I really don't. I genuinely think if the Jets are going to go ahead and take David Bailey over Arvell Reese, it comes purely because they watched zero film and they just went with the guy with better numbers. I think that's what it has to be.
By better numbers, you mean the better Madden rating is what you mean.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah.
This is it's next level dysfunction
And the
if they
Jets would
actually
do
go
this.
with
The
Arvell.
Jets would actually do something like this too.
No, of course they would.
I'll say a couple of things. First off, Mark Gastineau, elite pull. I knew you knew ball. Second off, I remember. Do you remember the conversation a couple of years ago? And this is a conversation that we had been having for a decade, where every edge rusher, corner, receiver, offensive lineman from the SEC, we would say, man, this guy was playing against the best of the best every single week. If you played at Alabama, or you played at LSU, or Auburn, or Tennessee, whatever. Well, the paragon has shifted. The Big Ten is the premier conference right now. I say this as an Alabama fan. The Big Ten is the premier conference right now. You have Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan as the last three national champions. You look at the rankings for next year, you look at some of the preseason power rankings. The Big Ten is looking to dominate once again. So the Big Ten is what we remember the SEC being 5, 10, 15 years ago. So when a guy like Arvell Reese is dominating the Big Ten, and he's playing against Michigan, and he's playing against the national champion Indiana Hoosiers. That still doesn't sound right to say, but it happened. I promise you it happened. When he's putting that up against those type of guys, like you can't just toss it to side and say, oh, it's he's going up against mailmen and garbage men. Like this isn't a guy playing at Bowling Green who's dominating a 5'8" slot receiver. No offense to my 5'8" slot receivers out there. He's going up against the best of the best because the Big Ten now is the SEC in terms of talent, in terms of NFL readiness, in terms of competency in the coaching ranks.
And like again, just going back to the personal evaluation, because there was one other point that I noticed I forgot to mention in my complete dig into David Bailey. I need to go back.
Yeah,
and
did he? Yeah, what's their beef with David Bailey, man? Did he like?
My beef with him is that he isn't very good. That's my beef with him.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
You
and
just hate
Arvell
bad
Reese
football.
Is my draft. I do. I hate bad football, and you know what I hate even more? I hate low effort, and he's low effort.
Yeah.
And
is this like an
more
Albert
than
Hainsworth
anything,
situation where he's gonna like fall and like just stay on the ground and not chase the quarterback?
My least favorite players are the Chop Robinsons of the world, and it's Chop Robinson's a good player, but like those guys that are so good against the pass,
yeah,
these pass rush specialists. I hate this wave of pass rush specialists going in the top 10. It pisses me off.
Yeah,
because. Look at Seattle. Again, let's just look at what made Seattle a great team. Mike McDonald said it. A big reason that they were able to go ahead and win the Super Bowl this year was because they were able to live in a too-high shell and still defend the run well.
Dude, they destroyed people with light boxes. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
They destroyed people.
And that's because they don't have a guy like David Bailey getting creamed on every run play. That's because you have Boye Mafe.
But hey, 3rd and 15, David Bailey would be awesome.
Well, yeah, but here's the other thing, too. Yeah. He's a third down specialist, but he's honestly not even that good of one. Again, the numbers say he's great. I'm talking about the film, man.
Yeah.
When you look at the film, he's working speed to power, and he's not a powerful player. He's powerful at Texas Tech, playing college ball. But I'm telling you right now, at his frame, he is not beating people with the bull rush. It is not happening in the NFL. And he doesn't really have a crazy bag of moves.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
So would you rather have the guy who can only bull rush, but at least he's good at bull rushing, or the guy that can only bull rush, but he probably won't be good at bull rushing in the NFL?
And again, dude, the time on task for Arvell Reese.
Better athlete.
The time on task for Arvell Reese is not even there. Like, we don't even know what his moves are because he hasn't even played edge that much. That's the scary part. He's at the floor of what his repertoire is going to be as an edge rusher. And the other thing, and I was reading just an article the other day, we've seen over the years, speed or power for an edge rusher. Power is the one that wins more often than not. Power is the more important trait. Arvell Reese clearly has that in spades. And again, I agree with you. I don't see the argument for David Bailey. No. I'm not even going to say he's maybe a first-round guy. Probably a high second round is where I would take him. Maybe the Jets.
He's going top 10. He shouldn't, but he will.
Maybe I was about to say maybe the Jets double dip and get Reese and Bailey. Like, that would be pretty sick.
Falcons?
Or like the Falcons or something. Even though they're rookie edge rushers getting arrested at the NFL honors, so maybe they need another one. But that's I think kind of what we would do in terms of the Jets. But Patrick, there's another really big decision looming for a bottom feeder in the NFL, And this time it involves a quarterback. And that quarterback, of course, is Kyler Murray. And that bottom feeder is, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, who have a big decision looming with their former franchise quarterback. Kyler Murray, who, was once seen as the best athlete since Bo Jackson being the first overall pick in football, being the ninth overall pick in baseball. I remember the days of what sport Kyler Murray was going to play. And as we sit here in 2026, maybe he should have chose baseball. The Athletics, they're an up and coming team. He could have been part of that team with Denzel Clark and all of them. But obviously he chose football, and for a while it looked like it was the absolute right move, and honestly his bank account probably would tell him that it was the right move as well. But as we sit here in March of 2026, he looks like he has played his last snap as an Arizona Cardinal. There was a report this week that said the Cardinals are more than likely going to release him. And now the question becomes, A, what do the Cardinals do at quarterback? And B, what are Kyler's options going forward? What teams would potentially pick him up and give him a chance? Is he still guaranteed to be a starter in the NFL? It seems like I'm dunking on him, but I think that's kind of the precarious situation that we find ourselves in. So, Patrick, I'll start with you. Do you agree with the Cardinals' decision to let Kyler Murray walk and unceremoniously release him?
I mean, I'll be entirely honest. I know they didn't really win games with him, but they looked better with Jacoby Brissett.
Hmm.
That being said, that was Drew Petzing's offense. It's a new offensive unit now. It's the LaFleur offense. But then again, I don't want to assume things, but I don't think Kyler Murray is a LaFleur quarterback at all.
No, I don't think
At
so.
all. I mean, in terms of what LaFleur probably wants to operate, just based off the offensive we've seen him operate before, way more timing based, way more hitting guys in stride, not a lot of backyard ball. Yeah, that's like the opposite of Kyler Murray in
Yeah.
every way, shape, and form. You definitely move on. I 100% think that's what they're going to look to do. And I mean, now we know it. The rumors came out. That is what they're going to do. And I think that's the right decision, right? This offense isn't about Kyler Murray. It really isn't. Not in my mind. So, yeah, I think you move on from him and then you try and get Mac Jones or something like that. I think that's the right approach for a team like this.
So, do you think that the Cardinals should go the bridge quarterback route? Do you think they should maybe try and see if they can capture lightning in a bottle with a guy like Malik Willis? 2026, you're Monty Osenfort right now. What is your plan at quarterback kind of for the immediate future and then also for the long-term health of the Arizona Cardinals? Are you, like I said, are you going with a veteran guy? Are you banking on the 2027 draft? You're trying to get like an Arch Manning? What do you think the plan is? Because I don't, they're definitely not getting a quarterback in the draft this year. And if they go the free agency route, it would have to be a bridge guy, unless you really think that 2 or 3 game sample size of Malik Willis proves that he's a franchise quarterback. I mean, I think their options right now are pretty limited. I don't see a pathway for them to really get a quarterback until next year, in which case I would tell you that the Cardinals are probably one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. They're probably in pretty good position to take a guy in the 2027 draft. But do you think they should wait that long, or do you think that they should, go out and get a veteran, like you said, like a Mac Jones or something?
I think you need to think a little bit more creatively here. I do. Trade for a guy. Two specific guys on the market. I mentioned Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is the type of guy that you want, right? Again, in this offense, I think they'll work very well. Another guy that I want to throw out the idea of, and we've heard a little bit less, but I've heard some rumblings about him being available for trade. Tanner McKee. Bring in Tanner McKee from Philly. Why not? I think he would be the type of guy, again, in an Arizona offense under LaFleur, a Shanahanian, Sean McVay type of system. I think it would work pretty well. I do. Now, if they were to go more the veteran route, well, I don't think this would ever happen because of the state of the team right now. But Aaron Rodgers would be a very good scheme fit. They would never be able to get him, though. I think potentially a guy like veteran, Kirk Cousins that would fit it well. Just a pocket passer that could go a little bit more in rhythm. I do think they'll go with the younger guy, not a Malik Willis. Not a Malik Willis. If they wanted that style of quarterback, they would have kept Kyler Murray around. I think they're going to go more the Mac Jones type of route. Again, I can really see Mac Jones being a.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds
I
like
think so.
it sounds like the 49ers want at least a second round pick for Mac Jones, and I will absolutely not do that if I'm the Cardinals. From what you said, I loved your symmetry because you talked about the former Stanford Cardinal becoming a Cardinal once again, and you talked about the former State Farm representative playing in State Farm Stadium. We're the best in the game. This is what we do for a living, ladies and gentlemen. But
That
I
was
agree
good.
with you.
That was really good.
Thank you, thank you. I'm here all week actually, behind my computer screen. I agree with you where I don't know that Malik Willis is a scheme fit. Ironically, even though he just played for the other LaFleur in Green Bay. I get what you're saying. If they're going to want a quarterback like that has some movement, that has some athleticism, why cut Kyler Murray? Right. That's kind of the thought process there. I do think they want a more traditional Shanahanian type of quarterback,
Yeah.
in which case,
Like I think Matt LaFleur had to adjust that offense too
oh,
much.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because
To
that's not,
and
that's not
that's just
Jordan Love.
putting like Michael LaFleur isn't gonna take this job to run an altered offense in his
No,
first year. He
no,
wants to run his system.
I
He
agree.
can't do that with Malik Willis. Although again, I love Malik Willis. I think
Yeah.
he's going to be awesome.
Oh,
But
interesting. Okay.
yeah,
I
no,
I'm
I'm really big on Malik
I
Willis.
would define myself as lukewarm on Malik
Mhm.
Willis. I will give you my opinion on whether I think he's successful or not when I see where he signs. I don't think
Mhm.
he's a
I
guy
think
that
that's
is
fair. I think that's very
successful.
fair.
But I would say I'm lukewarm. Going back to Kyler the player for a second, I do think that for a guy who came into the league who was so dependent on his athleticism, specifically his quickness, this is a guy who he could make you miss in a phone booth back when he was in his prime. And we've seen over the years those knee injuries have, I think, really zapped him a lot of his athleticism. This is not a passer who's ever been really a pinpoint accurate guy. He has a good arm. He actually has a pretty strong arm. People don't give him enough credit for that. But he's not a pinpoint accurate guy. I don't know that he's a guy that you want strictly playing in rhythm. That's to me the comparison for him right now for me. And this is going to shock some people when I say this, but you got to hear me out here. It's kind of like Russell Wilson, where early in his career, Russell
Yeah.
Wilson was a guy who wasn't playing in structure, wasn't running a traditional 3-step let it go, 5-step let it go, 3 and a hitch let it go offense. But man, was he running around? He was corking deep balls. He was making guys miss. He made Chandler Jones look like a toddler on that one run against the Patriots, if you guys remember. And Russell Wilson was actually able to sustain that style of play much longer than most quarterbacks are. But we saw it in Denver where when he had to play in structure, when he had to try to use his athleticism, he just was not the same guy. And he quickly the downfall of Russell Wilson was about as rapid as we've seen from a superstar Hall of Fame quarterback, because yes, he is a Hall of Famer. We'll have that debate another day. From a guy who was again top 3, top 4 at his position for multiple
It
years to
it
being
directly
unplayable.
correlated with the coordinators.
Exactly.
I'm
And
sorry to cut
so
off, but that's what it was about.
you
And for Kyler
exactly.
Murray, we saw a different quarterback
Yep.
with Kingsbury.
Yep. You see again a lack of the zapped athleticism along with a change of coordinators. I don't know that Kyler Murray is going to be even a shade of the guy that he was in 2021 and 2022 and all of that. I will say, however, to play devil's advocate against myself, if a guy like Justin Fields can get guaranteed starter opportunities in the big year of 2026, Kyler Murray certainly can as well. He, at his best, was a much, much, much better player than Justin Fields ever was.
Mhm.
And teams will certainly take a chance on getting the old Kyler, getting the Kyler of old to come back and be a version of what he was. So I do think that he is going to be a starter in 2026. And I think we could maybe start to get into what teams make the most sense for that.
Well,
Do you have a
yes.
specific team in mind that you think is a circle this team as a Kyler Murray destination?
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing before I get into that is kind of going back to the expectations with the Kyler Murray. It's I mean, you mentioned who he was in 2021. You say like teams are thinking that he had it back, and I wouldn't be shocked by it. I really wouldn't. I think that I don't want to sound like I'm necessarily a Kyler Murray believer, but I do think if you put Kyler Murray, so yeah, I'm pretty much just gonna say I'm a Kyler Murray believer in different words. But if you put Kyler Murray in the right spot where the system works in that way, and it's kind of a flawed offense, because that's what it has to be, a flawed offensive system, but he has the talent around him and he has a DeAndre Hopkins type of guy, and you let him scramble around and make plays single-handedly, things can work out and things can work out well. The team I want to float by you, right? where he could get a starting job because you have to keep in mind a team is going to look for his deal is going to be cheap. His deal should be pretty cheap because he's already on a different contract. He's already getting paid all this money. If he gets released, he's going to get paid a lot of money from the deal he's currently on. So he could get signed to a smaller deal. And I'm trying to think what offense could rely on a Kyler Murray type of performer and play more off script and embrace that. Cleveland with Todd Monken, right? If they want to move on from Shedeur, which I wouldn't blame them if they do because he wasn't good last year. I know he made the Pro Bowl, the prestigious
Dude,
Pro Bowl, but
he had like 7 touchdowns last year and made the Pro Bowl. What are you talking about?
that tells you just how good he is off aura
This guy
alone.
doesn't know ball. This guy doesn't know ball. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, right? Todd Monken, that offense with the Ravens was very dependent on Lamar being Lamar. And not just the legs, but creating pass plays, allowing long developing route concepts to develop by stalling in the pocket. Kyler Murray could do exactly that. Now, can he do it to Lamar Jackson's level? No. But again, I think he'll be relatively cheap because, again, paid so much with the Cardinals. And I think not many teams will look at Kyler Murray and say they want to bring him in and pay him a lot of money. I think Cleveland would be willing to pay him and make him a starter instantly. They won't be able to really pay him, but because he'll instantly be a starter on a team with a good defense, I think this might be the best chance for Kyler Murray to be a winner this year.
Yeah,
I do think that.
in terms of scheme fit and in terms of desperation, I do think that Cleveland makes a lot of sense, and they're probably more likely than the team I'm about to mention. But what about the Pittsburgh Steelers, man? What are you going to do? Run it back with Aaron Rodgers? And to be clear, I don't think that the scheme fit with Mike McCarthy is all there. But when you're looking at the Steelers and their options at quarterback, they got Will Howard on the roster. Okay, you probably don't feel good. He hasn't started a game. You're going to bring back Aaron Rodgers. Are you going to, I think bang for their buck. F it. Why not try this? Go get Kyler Murray. What's the worst that? What's the worst that could happen? What is the worst that could happen? You suck? Great. You go draft a quarterback next year. If Kyler's recapture that magic, well, maybe you actually, are able to make some noise this year. So I don't think that the Steelers, like you said, are you went more of like the scheme with Todd Monken and his prior experience with Lamar, and I totally agree with that. I'm coming more from a F it, let's try something new. And that's desperately what
that's not what the Steelers do.
Yeah, but that's what they need. That's desperately what they need.
It's what they need, but there's no way they do it because it's them.
Yeah, like this.
I hope you're right, and from a logistics standpoint, it's definitely the best move they should make. Right, the best move they could make is exactly what you're saying. But them being the Steelers, and we know what's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is going to drag it out, and then he's going to sign again with Pittsburgh.
He's going to come out of his like ayahuasca cave and then be like, I've been enlightened and I want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler again.
And if he doesn't sign there, it's probably going to be like Kirk Cousins.
No,
like
Big Ben's coming out of retirement.
Kyler Murray, there's a slight risk of exactly what you said, them being a bad team.
I don't know why they're so afraid to suck.
Because then they can't be mediocre.
Hang the banner. We haven't had a losing season since 2006. Hang the banner in Akershire Stadium. Like, who cares? Who cares?
But they want to be able to have 100 straight years of being mediocre.
Jeez,
the biggest honor in the sport.
Jeez,
when you have 6 Lombardis, this is what you're able to do.
Jeez. Yeah, you have all 6 Lombardis you have 4 of them from the 1970s before there was color in TV, and the other 2 are before 4K existed. Like I don't know. I'm not interested in being mediocre every year in my career, but I'm glad I'm not a Steelers fan. My team won the Super Bowl. So, I think another interesting thing that we need to talk about is, do we think that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be in position, A, to take a prime quarterback in the 2027 class, if we're assuming that they're just going to be god-awful this year? And B, I mean, I think that there's a legitimate possibility that with the unstable ownership that they have with Michael Bidwell, who was once again graded as one of the worst owners in the NFL, is there almost a sense of, hey, we need to figure this out right now, this minute? Because I don't know if Michael Bidwell is the type of owner to say, hey, you got a year, no pressure. Like, we could be bad this year. Like, take your time. We're gonna build this thing up the right way. And we're not just gonna throw a band-aid on it. I'm almost worried that there's gonna be some tampering from the ownership side to say we need to sell tickets. We need to be competent. We need to compete with the Rams and the Seahawks right now, this instant. Let's go get a guy. Let's go trade for a Mac Jones, which I think would be an awful move. Full stop. I think trading for Mac Jones would be an awful move for the
Really?
for the
Well, let me tell you, it's
for the
better than
future
what
of
they're
the
looking
franchise.
at. Do you know what they're looking at right now? Have you heard the rumors today?
They're looking at being awful in 2026 and drafting a guy in 2027. That's what they're looking
Well,
at.
yeah,
That's
what the rumor makes
That's
it
what they should
sound
do.
like. Well, the rumor today about them legitimately having interest in Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, dear Lord, have mercy.
Yeah, I that's why I'm glad you asked me what they should do earlier, and not what
The
I
big
think
Jimmy
they
G in
will.
the year of our Lord 2026. That's unbelievable.
No, yeah.
You should only be picking
Suddenly,
Jimmy
Mac
G.
Jones doesn't seem that bad.
You should only be picking Jimmy G for if you're doing a GQ men's model shoot. That's the only reason Jimmy Garoppolo should be selected for anything in the year of our Lord 2026.
You know who's
Absolutely.
another quarterback I feel like hasn't been mentioned enough? Davis Mills. No, I'm
Another former Cardinal. I see what you're doing there. Patrick.
Well,
Another
I'm
former
saying
Cardinal.
more about he was really good this year with Houston when he came in. Like they won multiple games straight. I know that defense is great, but he led a crazy comeback against a good Jacksonville.
Dude, the Jacksonville game was great. Yeah, he was awesome. Yeah.
That's why why have we not heard anything about him, but we're hearing about Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think of the options you've mentioned, Tanner McKee is the most intriguing because there's almost that level of we don't quite know what Tanner McKee is. I think we know because we've seen a season of Davis Mills and he's been a spot starter. He's coming out of the bullpen every so often. We kind of know what Davis Mills in. We don't really know what Tanner McKee is. He started one game in relief of Jalen Hurts. So Tanner McKee might be their most interesting option. If you ask some Eagles fans, they'll tell you they want Tanner McKee over Jalen Hurts. I mean, like God forbid they just won the Super Bowl like 740 days ago and they're
Philly when anything happens.
Yeah, it's that scene from the Clone Wars, like the Siege of Mandalore, where like the whole sky's exploding, and it's like Philly when they win a game by only a field goal. But that's just the truth. That's the God honest truth.
Oh, it's real.
Yeah, I don't know how if you've stepped into Philly, but you look like you don't have any nicks or bruises on you, so I'm going to assume you haven't been to Philly anytime soon.
So real story. I'm gonna before we wrap this up. I'm gonna tell a real story. When I must have been like 7 years old. It was a Steelers-Eagles game, and I used to love the Killer Bees. So I think it was a Le'Veon Bell jersey. As a 7-year-old, to a Philadelphia Eagles game in Philly, I was getting like chirped at by like 50-year-old men as a 7-year-old. And like whenever they scored, it was a blowout too. It was like Eagles destroyed Pittsburgh. And I started crying in the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and cried because after every touchdown, they do the fly Eagles fly, which is fine. Like that's normal fan behavior. What wasn't normal was a 40-year-old man walking up to me and being like, "You suck. I'm the one." And it got to the point my father had to tell him like, "Yo, he's a kid."
It don't matter. That's why you have that Giants flag in the background, is you harbored this hate for the Eagles.
Yeah. I'm not a Giants fan for the video watching.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not a Giants fan. I have a Giants roommate. That's what this is. But maybe I should be a Giants fan because I'm not gonna lie, that moment made me not really like Eagles fans.
Dude,
although now I'm an Eagles writer.
They don't get a bad rap. I'll make this super quick. I went to a Seahawks Bengals game with my mom, who is not a Seahawks fan. She was wearing my Seahawks jersey. She was wearing my DK Metcalf jersey. And DK, like he tends to do, punches the guy during the game. And every Bengals fan in our section just starts like harassing my mom. I felt so horrible. At least she wasn't 7 years old. That sounds like it would be a traumatizing experience.
I got a nice cheesesteak after though.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Philly's good for some. But probably not as traumatizing as being a Jets or a Cardinals fan. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Ahead of the Chains. We went through a lot. We went through the Combine, the Jets, what they do, and what the Cardinals do with Kyler Murray. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, which will be releasing on Friday.